crack, a dangerous substance that has ruined many lives and has caused much suffering. Due to the repetition of this drug, many have used it as a comparison to other things that people deem extremely addicting and life-destroying. Though many things have come close to being as addicting as cocaine, there's one thing, one game that has been deemed just as addicting as crack, and that game is Factorio. Tales are told of unfortunate individuals who have been sucked into such a potent addiction never to be seen or heard from by loved ones again. Despite the difference in crack and Factorio, they share a concerning amount of side effects to each other, like noticeable loss of appetite, changes in personal hygiene, sleep pattern changes, loss of interest in friends, family, and social activities, loss of interest in food, sex, or other pleasure. Despite several warnings of others refraining me from interacting with this game, I had chosen to see for myself what this game is all about after watching several individuals talk about this game. Going to the Steam page, I realized that there was a big expansion that released called Space Age. So I decided to see this entire thing through and figured I'll play through the game and the expansion. May God help me in my struggles and pull me out before I am lost to the addiction. Anyway, I'll be doing the Space Age expansion. So, let us begin. I'm gonna skip the first few hours since nothing really happened. I just set up my drills to get iron and copper to build the basics. After that, I started planning out my smelter columns and my main bus. 4 smelter columns for iron, 4 columns for copper. I started putting down my blueprints for green circuits that I took from Nilaus. And I'm gonna be honest, most of the blueprints I just took from Nilaus based in a book series, so I want to thank Nilaus for basically carrying me through the base game. Now, I had a lot of stuff to research that'll take a while, so I just AFK'd. Although I decided to be productive after a little bit and started working on steel production and increasing mining production. The next few hours I just spent automating more items, and that's pretty much it. After a little while, I noticed the locals were starting to have a problem with the pollution and launched an attack on my factory, and I kindly told them to leave my property, although when I checked the map, I didn't see any nests in the pollution cloud. Well then, what was this attack? A random patrol? Was this just a scavenger party they released? Well, I forgot about it for now, and instead just started working on automating military signs. After that, the first military signs was automated, so now we have access to better territorial debate strategies. I located an oil field on the map and set up a base to mine the oil, and started laying down infrastructure. With our railway setup, I set up oil processing for future advanced oil processing, and also so I can stick down beacons on it. I started working on plastic, sulfur, and red circuit production, so that I can make chemical science and get my hands on them tasty robots. But disaster struck. My steam engines were no longer giving any power. My power system was struggling to catch up with my constant expansion, and eventually just shut off. The coal miners were not providing enough coal to power all the boilers. Eventually, it couldn't even provide enough power to the inserters, and eventually, everything shut off. Having such a massive problem with my factory, I decided to just ignore it and add only a few more miners and fed the boilers manually to jumpstart them. Okay, I did actually do something after I finished on the oil refining. I started making solid oils so that hopefully the solid fuel can keep the boilers powered and the chemical plant can keep making solid oil. Surely, this plant won't come back to bite me in my ass. And hey, I finally made a tank. For the next few hours, I didn't do much. Just started working on a delivery station for all the trains to drop off ores, and start slowly switching to other resource patches than the ones that spawn. Okay, so I couldn't rely on steam power anymore, so I decided to start building solar panels and accumulators. But before I started laying down my solar panels for some reason, I decided to start building defenses. This was not the problem. The problem was in the chasm that is my skull. I decided that would be a good idea to try and defend an extremely large area and spread my resources out so thin that if the enemy did even a somewhat decent attack against me, they would break through all my defenses. And in most of the time, if a flamethrower was destroyed, I wouldn't even bother replacing it, because it was such a hassle to travel all the way to the other side of my base to fix it and also to go out everywhere and repair all the damaged ones. I spent so much time setting up all the walls and flamethrowers in a subpar way to fuel all the flamethrowers. Essentially, I was wasting so much resources on defenses that were dog shit to begin with. This terrible idea took so much time away from me. If I had just cleared out a bunch of nests and just set up defensive choke points and work on building the boss at the same time, which meant I could have done it quicker. At least I finally had the boss now, so I could construct things way faster. I don't really know what to do with the boss as a base, so I put them on a task of upgrading every belt in my base to a blue belt, and also finishing up making the solar farm, which made way more energy than my steam engine, so power had been solved for the time being. After all that, I just did some more upgrades, making purple signs, beaconing the oil processing, making tier 1 modules, upgrading labs so they research faster, and producing yellow signs, low density structures, and blue circuits, and also testing out my boss to fill up the base with concrete so it'll hopefully look nicer. It didn't really help, but I tried. Now if you remember back to my defenses, these defenses are retarded. So I decided to go Brinzo and make defenses that are less retarded. And so I went and killed off a bunch of nests that I didn't bother to record because I didn't have the storage to store all that footage, and finally I had made defenses that would actually be able to defend my base while I'm away at space. And also, because of these defenses that would heavily demand power, I had some centrifuges working to make uranium-235, and I had a pretty good amount of them. Since I don't have access to Cobra's arrangement, that's what I had to do. But I was still able to get a lot of 235 stockpile, so I started making hundreds of uranium fuel cells and building a nuclear reactor. And now that the nuclear reactor had been finished building, the last thing to do was put in the uranium cell, and oh my god, it's already making way more power this open. Oh my god. Now, to explain my defenses, I don't have requested chests yet, so these defenses will still be a little manual, but it's a billion times better than that piece of shit defense I used to have. Basically, I'll have flamethrowers try to dish out as much damage as possible and a bunch of laser turrets to kill any bug that doesn't immediately get killed by the flamethrower. Since I started to get the really tanky green bugs, I had to compensate with a ton of laser turrets. Including in the defense was a cutoff bot network that will use active provider chests to replace or fix any turrets and walls, so I wouldn't have to be there to fix the defenses. Because I didn't have requested chests, this defense is still not the best, but it'll get the job done, and it's far better than that sorry excuse of a defense. And finally, now that my base is well defended and well powered, I can finally begin working on the rockets. I got the resources to build the rocket off the belt and made a dedicated location to make rocket fuel for the rockets, and a place to make space platforms to build in space. And so once the space starter platform has been set up, it's time to go and start a voyage into space.